Hello and welcome to another edition of Power of the Pen. I am Luana Bradford. I am excited to be here today. I am the Chief Operating Officer of the Bradford Group as well as Principal of the Bradford Group Consulting. I am a four-time best-selling author and am passionate about everything that has to do with books. I am an avid reader. And the one thing that I love most about this show is it challenges me to keep my reading game up. Every single book that's featured on this platform, I make sure that I read it cover to cover so that I can bring to you the best possible viewing experience. And today we are going to be talking about A River of Time, My Descent into Depression, How I Emerged with Hope by Naomi Judd. And it's a very somber day because unfortunately yesterday Naomi Judd passed away. And today marks the beginning of Mental Health Awareness Month. And this book was selected because Naomi took the courage to share her story from some painful, dark secrets that she held for decades to her journey and discovery of recovery and resiliency through a challenging time and a continued battle with mental illness. And so I'm going to just take you through some things that I uncovered as I read this amazing story about her life. For those of you who may not be aware of who Naomi Judd is, she is a multi Grammy Award winning artist. She's a singer. She performed as a mother daughter duet with her daughter Winona Judd. She is also, and I'm using it in present tense because it's kind of hard to put her in the past right now, but she is a Emmy award winning songwriter, and she is an advocate for mental health as well as a mother and just an inspiration to so many. And author is also one of the titles that she carries. And even though I had heard some years ago that she struggled with mental health, I didn't um, realize how deep her journey was. And she, in 2017, when this particular book was released, she had done an interview with Robin Roberts and just opened up about this journey. And it pulled on her so much emotionally that when she was about to go on a book signing tour, it was just too overwhelming for her. And I think we can all relate to that, to just the, sometimes life just becomes overwhelming with its pressures, and we just find ourselves a little incapacitated. With the pandemic, like right now, the talk is the second pandemic. Well, the second pandemic is really our concern about mental wellness, because even those who you may have felt, I don't have any issue with mental illness or mental anxiety, I'm fine. When we as a global society found ourselves shut in different phases of isolation, we're not meant to be alone. We are human beings meant to have that social interaction and engagement with one another. And many people found themselves challenged in ways that they did not anticipate. And then those who have struggled um, in the past and even in the present with maintaining balance with their mental wellness found themselves even more in a state of angst and panic. We know that suicide rates are rising. Suicide rates among teens. There is so much going on in the world right now, and when we're thinking about mental health and mental wellness, we should be as comfortable talking about it as we talk about our physical health. In fact, we should be speaking about it more so, because when our mind is healthy and balanced, then everything else falls in line. So it's great to have a fit body, but if your emotions and your mind are out of whack, what use is that for you? So we want to make sure that as a community, as a people, that we really get loud about mental health, that we get rid of the stigmas, and that we have the conversation so that people do not feel alone out there. And I have my business partner who just joined me, Miss Barbara Beckley of the Diamond Factor. How's it going, Barbara?
Hey, lady, wonderful queen, how you doing?
I'm doing good, looking good, looking good.
You are too.
Thanks. Well, I'm excited about this month, and everything that we had planned about mental wellness, and elevating the awareness. I did not think that we were going to be talking about this book and also celebrating the life lived of Naomi Judd. And it's kind of puts me back in a reflection of when we did our episode on Sidney Poitier, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
It's like, just unfortunate timing. But I want to go over a couple things, and then Barbara, you and I can get this up. I'm on my Kindle, and it's not happy today.
Yeah, it
So
was. I was
go
just going to
ahead.
say real quickly, when I did see the news about Naomi Judd, because I followed them and her daughters and how, and the whole story, and, how they all came to be, celebrities, and the backstory, like you said, of what was going on, really going on. Like I always say, pushing the curtain from the front part of a person's life. And you just don't know. That's why I keep telling people it is so important, not just to look at the outside, but you don't know what really is going on in the inside. So, yeah.
No, and I want to pause right there because that's a really good point before we dig into this book. You're right. I mean, we are so used to masking up, right? We got to put on our work face. We got to put on our mommy face, our best friend face, whatever it is. And we've got to be strong. We are told, you can multitask, you can do all this, suck it up. And we get very comfortable with
Mm-hmm.
that pretense,
Yeah.
that sometimes we start to fool ourselves. And even in her book, Naomi talks about that she started questioning, wait a minute, I'm a trained registered nurse. I know signs of depression. This can't be me. I know how to get over this.
Mm-hmm.
So even her self talk got her deeper and deeper, to the point that because of intervention,
Mm-hmm.
she was able to uh, rise out of, in her experience, a 3+ year period of darkness. So
Oof.
she was going through, had been battling depression her whole life.
Mm-hmm.
But can you imagine how crippling it must be for 3 solid years
Mm.
to barely go out of your house, where she said hygiene was like not even part of her vocabulary anymore. She lived in her pajamas. She lived on the couch watching Law and Order,
Mm. Mm.
barely eating, not wanting to do the things that brought her joy. So
Mm.
there's so many symptoms of, depression, and we look at people who we think, oh, they're smiling, they're happy, they've got everything going for them, and then we find out that there's, like you said, there's struggles that we don't even see.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I've got finally got this Kindle up. Oops, I spoke too soon, Barbara. Okay, here we go. So we on Power of the Pen, Barbara and I, we come on and we talk about different books. And this month is going to be devoted toward books that may specifically speak to mental wellness, or they may be books to help individuals maintain that sense of mental wellness. Um, in this particular book, I want to just read this one intro statement. She says, this is before it's in the prelude. She said, in the darkest days of my severe treatment resistant depression, I was never blinded to the compassion for my beloved, who continuously reached down with loving hands and lifted me out of my harrowing nightmare of despair. Because of you, I can tell my story. I wrote it with a sincere hope of offering encouragement to the 40 million Americans who suffer from depression and anxiety every minute of every day and every night. I want them to know that I understand and that I'm here to help. So this book, and this goes back to what we often talk about, is not being afraid to tell your story. As
Yes.
whatever you may feel it's embarrassing, this is something I shouldn't share publicly, but you never know who you may help by saying, you know what, I went through this, or I'm going through this.
Mhm.
Because it's so important to know you're not alone, right, Barbara?
Yes. Oh, I can just yell it out to the rooftops right now, Luana. Just real quickly, I want to add to that, just to add to what you're saying, what she was saying in her book about she wanted to make sure she shared it out, even though she was struggling herself. And I did a presentation yesterday, and I got a question asked to me at the end, and it was a lady, and she was going through some mental health problems herself, and she wrote a devotional book about it. And she kept saying, she's like, I did it for myself first because I had to walk myself. I was walking myself throughout it. It seemed like journaling was the key, and it turned to a book. And she said, my question to you, Barbara, is how much information should I share to the world? I feel like, I maybe need to hide a lot of things, just put some quotes or something like that. And I told her, I said, you said you overcame by journaling and coming out and saying devotion. So I think you might be answering your question by saying you want to touch other people's lives and make sure they are not, if they're struggling, if anybody's out there, you can leave that legacy through your devotions. Don't hold back, because when you hold back, that's when people still feel like they're inside their own struggle again and no one else is dealing with it. And she's like, thank you for that confirmation. So now I'm just going to write it all out and just put it out there, because you're right. We need to save others that are dealing with what I dealt with.
Yeah, it's important, and I know that. Well, I think one of the fears for us not telling our story is, whether it's through writing or just having that verbal discourse, is feeling of judgment.
Yeah.
Feeling of, now that I've told this story, now people are going to see me differently.
Mm-hmm.
But what if they now see you as this survivor, this renegade, this victor? We've got to start to shift,
Mm-hmm.
our own self-talk. And I know it's easier said than done, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes when you're in that dark space, you can't see a way
hard.
out. So it's like self-talk. Hey, I'm just trying to check out,
Mm-hmm.
basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's rough, and I get that. That's why I wanted to make sure I was careful. But she said I was confirmation, and I'm so glad that she decided to do that, because I know what she's went through is going to help so many others that, like I said, behind that screen, as I call it, maybe, or behind the mask, how we say it, to get them to say, look, I know I have my issues now. I need to get help with this. Um,
Right.
so that was nice.
Now this is interesting because Naomi has this beautiful property,
Yeah.
and it's in Tennessee, and the name of her home, her estate, is called Peaceful Valley. But yet she
Wasn't
said
having no
she didn't have a life of peace.
total
It was a
opposite.
life of torment.
Mm.
It said, Peaceful Valley hasn't always been so peaceful. Suffering a mind body disorder like depression for more than 3 years straight. And for those who care about her, it was tough to watch.
Mm. That now that's yeah. Oh, keep going. I'm sorry.
No, it's, you know, there is there's a mental first aid course that's out there. And I am not, Barbara and I, we are not psychologists, psychiatrists, mental health experts at all. But this is a kit or a toolbox for individuals to learn about the indicators, how to identify them. Because sometimes we don't even know, right? We're thinking, they're just being lazy. Oh, they're sleeping all the time. Well, if you're sleeping all the time and you were once very active, there might be something emotionally going on. Or suddenly you're like, you're good with never going outside. I'm fine. I can be all by myself. Well, were we really designed to be a hermit? You know,
Mm.
what's happening? So again, there's various varying extremes from, you know, your deep, dark depression to just feeling of anxiety, having panic attacks. I mean, we're medicating ourselves like crazy to try to cope. And sometimes we have to find a way through trained intervention
Yeah.
to help us unpackage those things that we buried so deep, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it's happened to us as children, whatever that may have been.
Mm-hmm.
The way a
Yeah.
child copes, it's like let's bury it deep. Let's not talk about it. Let's never go there. But then years later, this thing starts to surface, and that's what happened with Naomi. I'm gonna pass it over to you while I find the next passage.
Yeah. Well, just to add to that, like you said, it seeps into from your childhood on to your adulthood. And then, you're wondering, or you're even wondering, or other people wondering, well, what's going on? I don't understand why you're here right now. But then I always say that the dig the deep part, you got to dig deep. You're seeing symptoms of what's been going on so long ago, but now they're coming out in different areas, in different areas. And I can understand because, like you said, when you go through certain trauma or whatever's going on within you mentally, you have to hopefully seek the help. If it's help from a counselor, if it's help from talking to a friend, whatever you need to do. If you don't do it, like you said, it starts to weigh you down, stay in you, and keep that turmoil inside of you. And I could say that because I remember when my father passed, my mother told me, which I wish it was the opposite, because I thought I needed to go to counseling. My mother told me we don't do that. And I didn't really understand at the time why she kept saying we don't do that. And she just explained, because she was just straightforward. She said, you get it together, you'll move on. It's going to be okay. We don't go to counselors. We don't open up. We don't say, you'll get it together. You'll work it out. Well, I'm in the front of me is saying, okay, she said, I got to work it out. But the inside of me is crying out. It was just crying out, saying, I just need something. I knew something was missing because something just left. So it was just this really turmoil. And then I had to put that little, like you said, to put the face on, you're growing up. And I kept hearing my mother said, get it together. You don't need to be telling people about what you're doing. You'll get it together. But, now that I'm older, I had to wind up going to counseling for something that happened to me back when I was 17 years old.
Yeah, and
So,
that's you and so many other people. And this goes back to even with Naomi, she grew up with that same mindset. It's like you don't talk about those issues. And she mentioned that her first trauma occurred when she was 3.5 years old. She was molested.
yeah.
And she describes the scene quite vividly in the book. And as this little girl, she's running to her grandmother, and she doesn't even know how to describe what happened to her, she says, but she knew it was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you're 3.5 years old, but you don't have the vocabulary yet to articulate.
Mm-hmm.
And so she just kept it inside. She wanted to talk to her mom, but her brother at the time, so this is a couple years later, had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. So then she's dealing with, well, I don't want to further burden my parents. Dad's working long hours at the gas station. Mom's concerned about, her brother. And I've got this issue. And so with her, she kept saying she felt there was no one to talk to, and that she needed to be strong. She needed to just, like she said, when you hear people say suck it up, no, there's no sucking it up, because mental health is a
Real.
real disease. It's
It's
a
real.
real issue. It's a sickness,
Yeah.
and we can sweep it under the rug. We can mask it, but then it comes out in so many other ways. She said,
Yeah.
I spent the next couple of decades learning about the human brain and the state of neuroscience, delving into the findings of brilliant researchers who were making breakthroughs on the mind, body, and spirit connection. I applied to my own life everything I was learning about how our personal beliefs affect our body, mind, and spirit. And most people didn't know this about her, that she had desires to actually be a medical doctor. And she stayed, for her whole life, fascinated with medical research, medical science. And she was often, her book stated that she often had just books and stacks of books, medical books, researching and reading and understanding. And she even met with top experts, from Dr. Amen to Dr. Rosenthal, to Dr. Schultz, to just talk and learn what's going on, to try to take an active role in her own healing and therapy. And, but the challenge, the journey was not just, okay, you go and you talk to someone today and you're fine tomorrow. Again, it's something that was very deep, very dark, and she was on so many types of medications. Said that she felt like a human guinea pig, trying this, trying that, to try to, create the feel good hormones in the brain, while still causing the brain to not be as reactive. And so she went from this happy-go-lucky person to one who was using profanity. Her personality started changing. Just again, there are secondary, tertiary effects of medications. We all know that.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
life was just very unbearable for her. I'm gonna turn it back to you while I look for this next section.
Yeah, those are the things that come out when you're pushed down. And I mean by pushed down, like she said, it started at the age of 3 and going on up, that she always had to put herself, it's almost like you had to put yourself to the side all the time and say, I got to be this person, got to put myself to the side, because it's the wrong timing. People are probably not going to understand. They don't think mental health is really a disease. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And some people see that. Some people still to this day think that mental health is not a disease. So with all that going on, you still, taking in everything and trying to put out what you can. And then all of a sudden, one day, because it did it for me too, pop. And it comes out in different ways. It comes out of you screaming, crying, yelling, cursing, whatever it is, it's going to pop somewhere if you don't really look at it more deeply.
Her book also talks about how she was diagnosed with Hep C, and they gave her 3 years to live, years ago, and she beat it. And this is before we have all the treatments that we do today. But then, at the end of their final tour, now it's like, now what? Now that all that I was doing is over. Now that my children are grown, they have children of their own who are grown. Now what? And how often do so many women deal with you've given so much of your life, and you may have enjoyed it, and then it's shifted, and now you're wondering, now what? Many women who are middle age are facing a lot of stress, anxiety, and depression because of life changes. They're divorced. There's empty nest syndrome. Your debt may be outrageous. There's a lot of things that's happening that can impact your mental health. Yeah. And she said, she's describing herself as, she goes, now that it's over, there's no fabulous gowns to design, no award shows to attend, No
Mm,
spotlight shining on the complete joy you feel while on stage. Even your offstage life will never be the same. Your daughters are adults with careers of their own. They don't need you. The
mm,
grandchildren have grown up and have lives of their own. They don't need you. Your
mm,
husband is still traveling with his vocal group and is often away. You're on your own now. What in the world are you going to do? Do you have anything to do tomorrow? I tried to shake these questions from my head. I tried to laugh them off as a mock restaurant hostess. Miss Judd, pity party for one, please. Follow me to your table by the door of doom.
mm, mm. Wow, that was deep. That last part of it, how she put it.
And then she says, I've taught to many women. So now we're talking about this middle age period, women 45 on up, who've lost their husbands through death, divorce, or betrayal, who are feeling abandoned and alone after giving their best years to a relationship that's now gone. They would tell me they've fallen into a depression or suffered bouts of anxiety about their futures, confiding that they had no idea who they were now, since they had identified themselves for so many years as a wife, as a mother, as an
Mm,
employee. I'd never seen that as possible in my own future, even though I witnessed it happen to mother when daddy left us. So she said when her father left, she saw it happen there.
mm,
And she never thought that this was going to be her because she always saw herself as this strong, resilient woman.
mm,
Yet now she's sitting on the couch watching Law and Order, refusing to get out of her pajamas.
mm. Yeah, that it's yeah, it's real, and you don't, because like you said, it's like you said earlier, Luana, it's like you're masking everything because you're not dealing with what that deep thing is. And then now it's like that's the pop. See, the pop don't have to always be the cry, the scream, the hollering, the cursing. The pop can be, I just want to sit here and not sit here for an hour. I'm gonna sit here all day.
I'm gonna
Taking a
sit here for
shower.
three. I'm gonna sit here for 3 years.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit here for
I
three
mean,
years and just,
it got that bad. I want to put this here, this disclaimer. This show, Power of the Pen, even though our series is going to be, we're going to be talking about mental health this whole month. This is for infotainment purposes only. We are not medical doctors or professionals. It's not designed to treat, cure um, any any disease or condition that you may have. We do encourage that if you're feeling um, that you're in that place where you need to cry out for help, you need some support, please call the 24-hour hotline at 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. I want to describe to you what she put in here, Barbara. This is about her day. She said, I rambled through the days in exhaustion from countless sleepless nights and tear filled hours of emotional and physical pain. In the morning, I might manage to make it downstairs for a cup of coffee. That alone would make me feel exhausted. So then I would lie down on the couch and stay there for hours. Larry, who's her husband, started to bring in carry-out food since I wasn't looking in the refrigerator. I couldn't even seem to find the initiative to make toast in the morning. I would leave the carry-out food untouched, surf through the TV channels, hoping to find another episode of Law and Order. There was something in the dramatic events of that show that took me away from the prison of my own thought.
mm,
Even in the evening, as I was brushing my teeth before bed, I would feel the anticipation of another nightmarish panic attack happening just a few hours of sleep after going to sleep. So I'm sharing these passages intentionally because if there's anyone who's out there that is feeling anxious, that is feeling panicked, that is waking up just in the state of confusion, fear, please, 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 please call 800-273-8255. You are not alone. Reach out. Don't be afraid to talk to family, friends. And if there's, you feel like they're not supporting you, if you're getting the, hey, suck it up, buttercup, then call this number. reach out, reach out, reach out. You do not need to suffer alone. Barbara.
No, you definitely don't need to suffer alone. And I'm so glad that they have like the hotline number, for you to talk to somebody and just say what you have to say finally. Don't have to be in the background anymore. Just open up and say, you know what, I'm feeling this way. I know something is not right. And when you get to that point, you got to ask yourself, I know something's not right, then yeah, that's a good question to say, may I need to do the next step. And I love how you said earlier, Luana, that they have that mental kit that people can get.
Yeah, I want to get oh, I can't think of his name right now, but we've had him as a guest on our show, but he actually teaches using that kit, and I would love for him to come and introduce it, and then individuals can, because I understand it's a national training program, and within each major cities or maybe even smaller cities, you can go and have this training.
Yeah. And what I like about it is, like you said, it will educate you more, help you show the triggers that you can see, not just in yourself, but maybe in others that you're talking to, that you might see something. And I'm not saying, I like you said, this is the infotainment only, as you put it. But we want to be more educated, so if we do see something, I'm not saying to call somebody else and say, hey, you need to blah blah blah, because that might make it worse.
Right.
Just coming to somebody and say, I noticed that you're doing this. Do you have a little, how people do? They don't get it, and they start saying things and doing things that's gonna trigger even worse, that they're gonna go back into their hole even more. So, but at least you'll know, and kind of maybe have that conversation in a different way, or just check it up on and say, hi, I love you. See, sometimes that alone could it's a little piece, just take off just a little piece of what a person's turmoil is going through in their mind. If somebody just turns around and say, you know what, Luana, I just want to say I really love you today. Someone just told me I just tell you I love you. And you don't know what that can do for a person.
No, that's huge, because Barbara, this is just Luana's view of the world, but I believe we all have a breaking point. We all have a tipping point. We may not even be anywhere close to it, but if you continue to compound yourself with negative emotions, experiences, after a while, and if they're not resolved, you're going to explode, you're going to break, you're going to retreat. I mean, that's just the human nature. It's like you're trying to survive in the best way you can. And I'm going to just talk to you about all the hardships that this beautiful, she's a gorgeous woman, beautiful woman, inside and out, gorgeous voice, gorgeous talent, faced in her life. She says she was sexually abused as a child. Remember, I said 3.5 years old, her first negative experience. Losing her brother to cancer, teenage pregnancy, betrayal and abandonment by the birth father, divorced, single mother, and about the divorce, she ended up marrying someone else who was willing to be the father of her child. So that's how that all came. Single motherhood, poverty, on welfare, sleeping on a mattress from Goodwill, a deloused, so with lice, deloused mattress from Goodwill. Is having to escape Los Angeles because an ex-con stalked her, raped, and beat her. Then living in a fishing cabin with no heat while putting herself through nursing school, working 2 other jobs, overcoming Hep C.
Ooh, that's a list.
Right. Imagine this again, that very first incident, 3.5 years old, was never dealt with, right?
No.
Now you add. You keep adding. And all this time, she kept saying she felt alone. There was no one there. There was no one to talk to her. She had to pull it together. She had to be there for her children. Well, who was there for Naomi during that time? And those who may be watching this, are you feeling that way? I mean, I read this book and I loved how it was written, and it takes you, like to the present tense, present
Mm.
day, and then
Yeah.
it would take you back, and it was
Yeah.
just well written, but you could feel, I felt all the pain
And that's
in this journey, and I also felt the fear in her writing this, like, okay, how are people going to receive this? And she even
well.
mentions that all through all this, she was praying, but then she said, in all my praying, why would God still let me sink so low?
Mm. Mm.
And how many times have we gone through something and we're like, God, where are you? I'm a Christian, and I look at, even Christ cried out,
Yeah.
Father, why have you forsaken me? And
Mm-hmm.
that's what she felt. She felt like, hello, God, I'm praying. Are you listening? Is anyone there?
Mm-hmm.
What's
Mm.
going on? Why is this, just more and more and more and more? So you've got that on one side, but then you've got this rising star on the other side, right? Where she and her daughter were discovered, and this whole musical quest was because of the gift that God had given Winona.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's
Yeah,
like,
'cause
I
that
want to
would.
be there. I want to support my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest is history,
Yeah.
what the world could see,
But
right?
the world could see. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, when you were talking about her and all the piling up of stuff, like you said, I thought about, going back to the Bible real quickly, is Job, and how
Mm.
he'll constantly, but he still was standing there saying, God, I believe in you, I'm with you. Whatever's going around me, whatever's dealing with me internally, externally, everything that he was dealing with, he still stood strong. And in her world, I'm glad that she was able to write this book. I'm glad that she was able to get through it and show in the book, like you said, the back and forth and the emotions and the struggles she was having. Because there's others, like we said before, this can save a life for others. She wrote a book to save lives for others. That's what I see
Yes.
in that book.
And like you gave an example where your mom was saying, oh, we don't do that. We don't do counseling. Well, that's a different chapter when we are looking at within the different ethnic groups. So let's just sit in America, for example. For white America, it is more accepting today to go to counseling, to go to have your therapist, right? But in the African American community, in other communities, mm-mm, it
It's
does
like,
not look good. It's like, really? That's what you're doing? That's what you need? And then you have those that are very strong in faith. It's like, what, you're not trusting God, right?
yeah.
You need to go to man. You need to sit on someone's couch and talk about your issues. It's I remember this is when I was younger. I was 16, and I wouldn't call myself depressed, but I was angry.
Mm.
Um, and and it was because, so my brother and I are 6 years apart in age. He's a boy and I'm a girl. My parents are older, older generation. They're the baby boomer generation. So, a girl is treated one way, a boy is treated another. And I remember thinking, looking back and saying, okay, why is he given all, able to do A, B, and C? And when I was his age, I couldn't. And I would get the comment, well, you're a girl. And that would make me, I would get, just angry.
Mm.
And I remember my mom's like, you need some help. And so she sent me to a psychiatrist at 16
Mm.
years old. She's like, okay, we can't handle this little
Mm.
little Tasmanian devil running around here.
He said Tasmanian devil. It's a-
And the doctor's name was Dr. Chestnut. Chestnut, right? And I remember being angry, like, why did I have to go here? But what he taught me was to acknowledge my feelings. Don't deny them, acknowledge them. He's like, you can go around pretending you're not angry, and it's just going to keep boiling and boiling and boiling. He said, then you're going to explode at the wrong place at the wrong time.
That's that pop. Mm-hmm.
And so, again, I didn't go to Dr. Chestnut long, maybe a couple months or so, but that stood with me to be okay with saying, okay, yeah, I am angry. You did hurt me, or I feel great. I feel happy. But before then, it was like I was in denial. If my mom was like, you've got anger issues. No, I don't. Yeah, I did. But then let's dig, why? Well, when you dig why, there's a spirit of jealousy. Even though 6 years different in age, I'm looking thinking, oh, he gets to do this, he gets to do that. I didn't when I was that age. Jealousy is a little bad green-eyed monster, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they named it right.
That had to be checked. And it's funny because even when my brother turned 40, I publicly, and that was part of my healing. So he's 5 years younger than me. So this is like 15 years ago. At his 40th birthday party, I stood up and I was just saluting him as my brother. But I felt it was time for me to confess that even after all those years, I still resented him. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault. But again, from a young child, not understanding, and then as I get older, as a teen, getting more agitated, and then he's still in high school. I'm out of college and gone, but I had to get to a point of healing, and for me, that healing came through public confession. And he just looked at me like, oh my God, you wish I wasn't here? Yeah, actually I did. I really, that was the truth.
Yeah.
Right? So, but look at how it was eating at me.
Yes, you have to see
what it was doing to me. And so going back to Naomi and all the stuff that she was going through, surely there was some resentment there.
Oh yeah.
It's like, why me? Why was I at my grandmother's house in what I thought a safe environment, and then Uncle Charlie comes in and molests me? Why am I trying to survive on my own? And I meet a man who I think is great and loves and adores me. He turns out to be an ex-con who rapes and beats me. It's, just this ugliness that's there that we can, again, say, okay, I'll shake it off and move on, but never deal with what it's doing to us, the hurt that it's caused.
Well, I was going to go back to what you were saying with talking about my Naomi. I'm sorry, I say her name wrong. I'm sorry. Where you were basically at 16, basically your mother said, you're the Tasmanian devil. You're not going to be running around here. And she basically said, we're going to make sure you get the counseling. So she did the opposite, thank God, of what my mother did. And from there, you were able to get tools that Dr. Chestnut gave you, and then said, okay, I'm going to take these tools and I'm going to use them. Now, I might be slowly using them because it's a new thing for you. And that's anybody that's, you're dealing. Right. Okay, somebody give you a tool. You're like, okay, I got to learn how to work this tool. So you had to start learning how to work the tool. Well, Naomi didn't get a chance to get tools. She had to keep, have that, everything was going on with her. And I'm just, like you said, the list of stuff that she dealt with. And can you think about it? The hit, it's like you keep getting hit and hit and hit. And there's nobody like moving the hit back or telling you how to, okay, I need to do this, it's like, okay, I got hit again, but nobody say, well, guess what, Barbara, put your hands in front, or do a punch or, walk away or something, or run away. Those are kind of tools in a sense. But she wasn't getting those tools. You got the tools. I didn't get the tools till I got older. So,
well, speaking of tools, that's a perfect springboard. So remember, I told you she had different professionals. Well, when she met Dr. Rosenbaum, she says that's when her life changed. So yeah, she was still on, antidepressants and other medications, but this is when he started giving her what he calls sleep hygiene, because he said the brain needs sleep. It's paramount for the brain to deal with depression. It has to get sleep. It has to have that restorative sleep. And so he gave her this list. And I give this list to any of you that may be struggling with insomnia, anxiety attacks. First thing he said was go to bed at the same time every night. Go to bed the same time every night. Rise the same time every morning, even if you didn't sleep well the night before. So it's helping your brain reframe in a routine. He said, choose some type of regular exercise and stick to it. Daily exercise helps to improve the quality of your sleep. So even if it's taking a 15-minute walk, standing in place, marching in place, whatever it is, do some exercise on a consistent basis. He said, number 4, keeping the temperature in the bedroom cool. Because when it's too hot, your body's actually not resting well. Your body sleeps better in a cool environment. Number 5, Dr. Rosenthal said, don't watch TV late at night. He said, or look at a computer screen in bed. The light is what stimulates activity in your brain. So, you're thinking, I'm feeling tired, but your brain is like, I'm wide awake. So he's like, let's take it down. Then number 6, he says, turn out all the lights and keep the bedroom quiet. And I know a lot of people who sleep with that TV going all night. I can't. I mean, the slightest noise, I'm awake. So he's saying, turn off the lights. Then he says, number 7, before you go to sleep, don't start going through the problems of your day. Think of something pleasant to reflect on. What was good? And we hear a lot of people talk about the gratitude to end your day with thoughts of what are you grateful for? Even though the day may not have gone perfect, there's at least one thing that you can be thankful for. If it's, I woke up this morning, right?
And I'm breathing.
With strength in my body, as the old folks say. And I used to laugh when I would hear cloaked in my right mind. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I always think, why did my grandparents say that? I get it.
Yeah.
Because they didn't take that for granted. They didn't take the mental wellness, the physical wellness for granted. How often do we think, I got this, I'm good. You're taking it for granted.
Yeah. Yes.
Then he says, try a warm bath and listen to calming music before bed. So, if that's not working, find a way. It's like to calm yourself down. And then he says, no napping during the day.
Oh.
You can take little power naps, but he's talking about, I'm going to sleep for an hour, 2 hours, right? Because it's going to disrupt your sleep. So I thought that was a great tip. And then she also shared, this was another, it was called the ABC. So this is something else that the doctor gave her. This one is, and we'll make sure that we have this for those that are listening. I know we want to thank you who are joining us from E360 TV, Apple TV, Samsung TV, and the Celebrate You community. I'm here with Barbara Beckley, and we are talking about River of Time, My Descent into Depression, How I Emerged with Hope by the late Naomi Judd. And we're just sharing with you some tips, some tools, and a little bit of her story. It's a great read. But the ABCs, Barbara, are number 1, accumulate positive emotions. So A stands for accumulate positive emotions. So if you want to get this information, join us on the Celebrate You Women Embracing Wellness Facebook group. We'll post these 3 things there. Accumulate positive emotions. And she said, this is by choosing, because we have a choice every day. She goes, she chooses to focus on things that are positive and pleasant. She chooses to only do those things that are positive and pleasant. So it's okay to say no. If something doesn't feel good, it's okay to say no. If it doesn't feel good, stop it. Number 2, for B, build mastery. Build mastery. That is finding something that you are passionate about, you feel strongly about, that makes you feel purposeful in life. This goes back to you, your PPD. And that will help you move away from that feeling of hopelessness and despair. And sometimes we have to be reminded, what I used to enjoy doing. Oh my gosh, I used to love painting, or I used to enjoy hanging out and, just staring out at Lake Michigan and reading a book. Well, go back to that.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. Go back to those things and build mastery, so it gives you something to feel purposeful about. C is cope ahead of time with emotional situations. So have a plan in mind if you're heading into a situation that makes you emotional. So I'll give an example. Let's say you and your mother are always at odds and you're going there for the holidays. How are you going to cope? What are you going to do so she doesn't provoke you to a place where you're now in an unhealthy mental state? So this is about creating our own toolkits, because we all know our triggers. We all have them. What is it that you need to focus on so that when this trigger happens, because you're going into the fire, that you're able to say, okay, I hear you, Mom. Take a walk for a minute. I'll be back. Whatever it may be. Sometimes it's saying nothing, right? But finding a way to de-escalate it. And it says, he ends with, please take care of your mind by taking care of your body. And we are almost out of time, and I want to read this last passage from her. She says, depression can feel like riding a runaway train, heart pounding, full speed ahead with sudden stops, unpredictable curves, frustrating breakdowns, and never knowing what awaits you around the bend. After the worst 3 years of my complicated life, I've finally gotten off the train. I've landed on my feet after much hard-won soul searching, figuring out my troubled past to understand how and why I boarded that horrible train of depression in the first place. My everyday life is not only manageable, it's become enjoyable once again. I laugh a lot. I'm content and at peace because I practice radical acceptance every single day. Please join me in telling the truth about depression and anxiety to anyone who will listen. It is a disease of the brain, part heredity, part environment. Like heart disease, it's not a character flaw. Only by telling our stories will more people understand. Only by telling the truth will we stop the stigma. I've told my story. Now you know, and you can tell yours. You are not alone.
Awesome.
So, powerful, powerful words.
Wonderful woman.
Yes, and our hearts, our prayers are with the Judd family, and I am so grateful that she has left this legacy for those to read, to follow, to give hope and encouragement. I said I was blessed by reading it, and I think when you know that someone's like really going through and think that no one gets it, no one understands all the hell I've been through, suggest that they read this book. It's like, yeah, you're going through it. We're not negating it. It's ugly. But let me tell you about another ugly story. that found a way to cope, found a way to laugh again, found a way to love again and embrace life again. And we don't know the cause of her death. We just know that the children said that, we lost our mother to the disease of mental illness. What that means, we don't know. Um, but we do know that it is a disease and it's out there trying to devour as many people as it can. And again, we're not psychologists, psychiatrists, mental health experts. We just have a passion of telling the story, of hearing a cause, and using our platform to get the word out. So, Barbara and I this month will again be bringing different authors and their books about, it may be specific about mental health, but it may be books to help you ensure that you're feeding your mind and your spirit with healthy material to find that balance that you need in your life. Barbara, is there anything you want to add before we sign off?
No, that was a lot, and I'm just taking it all in. And again, I just tell people just to make sure that however you feel, just make sure that you have an outlet somewhere and use those tools that you can find. And thank you, Lawan, again for having me on the Power of the Pen.
And I want to, if you want to be a guest on our show, please send an email to me at Lawana at Bradford Group. I spelled it wrong, but being Bradford Group, MTG.com, Bradford Group, MTG.com. You can connect with me on Linktree at Lawana Bradford 12 or Barbara Beckley at barbarabeckley.com. And we look forward to learning more about you and your book. And I'm going to play one last commercial before we sign off.